Hi everyone, I'm David Fisher, and this is Presidential Chronicles, the series of books and videos on American history as seen through the lives of the presidents of the United States. This episode is from the life of Theodore Roosevelt, and the focus is enjoying the presidency. Now, believe it or not, most presidents, at least to date, did not enjoy the presidency. Now, they all wanted it. They all wanted to win and get the office, but most didn't like the position and all of the burdens that come with it. Most were actually pretty glad when they got a chance to go home afterwards. Not Theodore Roosevelt. He loved every minute of being president, and for one reason, many reasons actually, but one of them was that he always liked being the center of attention. In fact, one of his kids once said, "Father always wanted to be the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral." This was somewhat of the personality of the President of the United States at the turn of the century. Now, he loved the job, and he also loved the home life that he established for his family in the White House. Ike Hoover had been a chief usher in the White House for decades, and he called the Roosevelt years the wildest scramble. Why? Because it was kind of a wild mess. The kids would have free reign to play whatever and wherever. Their father would often get involved with them in roughhousing around the house and even keeping senators, congressmen, and ambassadors waiting while he played some crazy game with the kids. He also had a house with a lot of pets. Archie and Quentin in particular brought into the home not only dogs, but lizards, a pig, a macaw, a hen, a one-legged rooster, a pony, a small bear. This was no different from Roosevelt had always had in his home, so he wasn't going to have anything different in the White House. And as a result, he said, "I have had the happiest home life of any man I have ever known." And that applied to before being president, as well as his years in the White House. Now, Edith, his wife, the First Lady, ran the household, including the White House. And Roosevelt and Edith had formed a very comfortable life together. It never really had the same passion that Roosevelt had felt, at least as expressed in his letters and his diary, for his first wife, Alice, who had died in childbirth at the age of 22 many years before. But when he married Edith, who had known since practically he had been born, he had established a very comfortable life with her. They were compatible intellectually, they enjoyed each other's company, they supported each other, and really had found the right balance to have a very productive home life. Roosevelt also was very happy to have the First Lady manage the White House, including overseeing a major renovation. It's the first time the White House had been renovated since the 1820s, when they added the north and south portico. They were running out of space. And so they decided to add a building to the west of the White House that was connected, and they called it the West Wing. The president's offices were moved from the residence to the West Wing, and Edith oversaw the renovation of the residence to have some additional bedrooms and a private study for the president. It was a very happy time for Edith, who loved being First Lady, and her family with the president. Now, Roosevelt had personal characteristics that were actually quite infectious. One was his smile, and related to that was his laugh. And his laugh was everywhere and a very much part of him being President of the United States. William Hale of the New York Times wrote, 100 times a day the president will laugh. It is usually a roar of laughter. His face grows red with merriment, his eyes nearly close, his utterance becomes choked and sputtery and falsetto. Sometimes he doubles up in paroxysm. You don't smile with Mr. Roosevelt. You shout with laughter with him. Gives you a taste of what it was like to be in the White House with President Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt also believed in his personal life in rigorous exercise. It had been part of his routine since he was a young boy, and this was not going to change just because he's President of the United States. So he has a room in his White House called the Cabinet Room. And it has conference tables and chairs and maps and all kinds of things like that, and he gets rid of all of it. What does he do? He creates what he calls the administration's Department of Physical Culture. He builds a home gym, and it's got wrestling mats and boxing gloves and foils and single sticks and punching bags. Boxing was one of his favorites. And he would go to this room just about every day, and he would invite friends and colleagues to come and go a couple of rounds with the president. And the big rule is you better bring your A game. Don't go soft on the president or he wouldn't invite you back. He took this seriously. In fact, one time he got an eye injury that eventually cost him the sight of that eye as it deteriorated over the years. But again, he always went all in. An example, a boxing friend of his, or a friend of a friend, had come to visit in the White House, and Roosevelt had just seen him fight. He was so excited. And he had witnessed this man knock out his opponent, and he goes about this knockout punch. He says, show it to me, hit me on the chin as you hit him. And the gentleman hit him, but kind of hit him softly. And he goes, no, that won't do. Hit me hard, hit me the way you hit him. So the man pulls back and hits the President of the United States, knocks him backward, and Roosevelt goes, that's it. I've got it now. Now let me try it on you. And sure enough, Theodore Roosevelt pops the guy in the chin. He goes back, and they all have a great big laugh out of it. This was the White House of Theodore Roosevelt. Now, Roosevelt, of course, also did a lot of outdoor exercise. Horseback riding was a very common thing, but also something they called hiking. Hiking was a pastime that the Roosevelts had started in their home in Oyster Bay, up in New York, where they would pick a spot or a direction, and they would say, for 4 or 5 miles, we're going to go straight in that direction. And it didn't matter what kind of barrier or obstruction was in the way, they would have to go through it, over it. They would not deviate to go around it. It could be a river, it could be a building, it could be a large tree or a stone or a hill, whatever it was, and this was how they challenged themselves with exercise. They brought the same technique to Washington, where Roosevelt would often go hiking in Rock Creek Park, and he brought his hiking mentality with him, and he would invite congressmen and ambassadors and cabinet members, and if you wanted to get in the good graces of Theodore Roosevelt, you went straight where he went. If you had to go through water, through mud, over rocks, over hills, you did it. And this was, again, somewhat of a test for Roosevelt and some of his colleagues and people that he dealt with in Washington. You get in his good graces by passing this hiking test. Roosevelt also, of course, did a lot of hunting. He had been a hunter his entire life, and bear hunting was one of the things that was important to him. And one time on a bear hunt in Mississippi, early in his presidency, 1902, he spied a young bear cub, and he decides not to shoot the cub. And this becomes actually big news, and the stories are around this, and the heartwarming notion of Roosevelt giving this life back to this bear cub catches the fancy of the imagination of the American public, and including political cartoonists. Well, it also caught the imagination of a toy maker by the name of Morris Michtom, who was based in Brooklyn. He goes, this is a great idea for a children's toy. Let's come up with a cute, cuddly little bear, and we'll name it after the president. And he says, we'll call it the Teddy Bear. Now, Roosevelt didn't actually like the name Teddy, but Michtom asked him if I can use your name for this toy for children, and he actually says yes, and the Teddy Bear was born. Now, the biggest family challenge that Roosevelt always had was his oldest daughter, Alice, who had been named after his first wife, who she died when Alice gave birth to this daughter. And Roosevelt had effectively abandoned Alice for the first 3 years of her life while he was grieving over the loss of his wife. Well, Alice had become part of the Roosevelt household, but she was never really comfortable. She was always a difficult child. In fact, Roosevelt at one point, it didn't get better over the years, he said during his administration that I can be president of the United States or I can attend to Alice. I can't do both. It gives you a sense of the magnitude of the challenges he had with his oldest child. But all was good in the world on February 17, 1906, when Alice tied the knot with Congressman Nicholas Longworth in front of 500 guests in the East Room of the White House. It was a great ceremony, a great day, and surprised everyone when Alice, after she completed the ceremony, went over to her mother-in-law, Edith, who they did not have a close relationship, and he gave Edith a big hug. This was a very good day in the Roosevelt world. In fact, most days were good days in the Roosevelt world. He loved his family, he loved life, and he loved being President of the United States. And that's Theodore Roosevelt and enjoying the presidency from the life of Theodore Roosevelt. For more presidential chronicles, check out my books on Amazon.com, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until next time, I'm David Fisher, and this is Presidential Chronicles.